All of us reach a point in time where we are depleted and need to somehow find a way to reignite the fire within. But how do we spark that flame? Welcome to Reignite Resilience, where we will venture into the heart of the human spirit. We'll discuss the art of reigniting our passion and strategies to stoke our enthusiasm. And now, here are your hosts, Natalie Davis and Pamela K.S.
Welcome back to another episode of Reignite Resilience. I am your co-host, Natalie Davis, and I'm so excited to be back with all of you today. And joining me, of course, is your co-host, Pam K.S. Hello, Pam. How are you?
I am fantastic.
Yes.
It's a beautiful day, and you and I are kind of, we'll let our listeners know that we've got the cover of our book, the interior of our book, and it's in production
Yes.
right now, and it's getting a little surreal. So for those of you who know us, you will probably be getting a reach out to see if you will be part of our launch team.
Oh, for
But
sure.
yeah, it's becoming a little real, and it's kind of
Exactly. If you and I have shared the same space and air in the last year, you're going to hear from me. So just be prepared.
yes. So there it is.
I love that. Well, before we dive in, I know that we're going to have listeners that are curious because on our last episode, you shared a little bit of insight behind your silent retreat. How are you, days, weeks after the silent retreat? How are you feeling? What have
Uh,
you downloaded? How's it going?
so have I changed my morning routine? No. Um, because I just went right back into, the old habits. Um, have I spent more time away from my phone and technology? Yes. Now when I take my dog, I don't bring anything with me. And it's much easier for me. Before I was get really anxious about, oh my gosh, what am I going to miss? Now I'm just kind of like, it'll be fine. And I'm spending more time kind of just outdoors, just being a little more. I think I'm more aware of my surroundings when I'm outdoors now, which is good. And I am doing some meditating. Like this weekend, I
Good.
was down in the Springs and I sat out on a porch. I didn't bring anything with me, and I just closed my eyes and listened to the birds and was able to get into a meditative state, which I've never been able to do
Wow.
before.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so it went really well. I've shared it with a lot of people and am encouraging people because everyone I say it to, they'll, oh, I could never do that. I could never do that. I'm like, yeah, well, I didn't think so either.
It's
But actually, you can. And I did not burst into flames like I thought I would. So,
exactly.
yeah.
Oh, well, we're glad to hear that you're still doing
Yes.
fine and still uncovering and peeling back the layers as you go through it, right?
Yes.
It's not that you
Yes.
are going into it expecting some big, massive, life-changing,
Mhm.
life-altering experience. But it is, I think that it's definitely put a spotlight on some key areas for you and given you a chance to, like you said, just be more present and having appreciation for everything around us.
Yes, absolutely. And it was such a powerful reminder because I had a coaching call this week with a coaching client that he was a student. I've known him for years, and he lost a very dear friend, someone he considered a brother, very unexpectedly, young, like 61. And just it was such a reminder of the pause, the presence, and just how we don't know what's happening tomorrow.
Right.
And so if we're just constantly just checking the boxes and doing the tasks, we may wake up one day and not wake up.
Yeah,
And yeah,
exactly.
and what have we missed? So yeah,
Yeah.
so good reminder.
Love it. Love it. Well, wonderful. Well, today, we haven't done anything adventurous for our listeners. We're not going to report out that we've done any other retreats or things like that. But we do have a wonderful guest that's joining us today. So,
Yeah.
Pam, why don't you let our listeners know who's joining us today?
Yes, today we have Amira K.S. Berger, MBA, CVA, CFRE. She is an award-winning communication and DEI leader, author, professor, and speaker. She serves as Executive Vice President and Global Head of the DEI Advisory at Eldeman. Hopefully I said that right.
Edelman.
Edelman, where she provides senior counsel on reputation, equity strategies, and leadership communication, especially in healthcare and corporate environments. Amira is the author of the upcoming book, The Price of Nice: Why Comfort Keeps Us Stuck, and 4 actions for real change. So excited to have you with us today. And Natalie has an advantage. She has met you before. She has heard your story. I have not. Our listeners have not. So I would love to hear your story.
Absolutely. Well, thank you both, first of all, for the gift of time and space to be here with you. I always love talking about this book baby that is about to be out in the world, but also just getting to talk about it, especially with other women, because I think that's who it's going to resonate with very deeply in particular, because we know how to play nice and we've been conditioned to play nice in very specific and deep ways. But a little bit about me, Amira Barger, as you mentioned. I am so many things to so many people. I talk a lot about the layers of my identity because I think that's so important to people understanding a little bit about why I took the time to write a whole book. But I am Black, disabled, cisgender, heterosexual, a September Virgo. That one's one of my favorite identities.
We
Uh,
all are, just
We
so
are
you
too.
know.
this is the Virgo call. This is the
Yes,
place to
yes,
be. You see, the
yes,
universe knew that we needed to be
yes.
together to talk.
Love it.
I'm a communications executive, a writer, professor, a partner to my 20 plus year partner, Jonathan, and a parent to my now 12-year-old going on 30. Sometimes it feels like daughter, Audrey. And I'm also a fur baby mom to my 2 dogs, Bucky and Potato. So there are many layers to who I am that have really helped shape my world and how I show up in the world, including a very interesting upbringing, which Natalie got to hear about last time we were together. My parents actually raised us during the formative years of my childhood on the tiny island of Guam. It is 30 miles long, 8 miles wide, and I think today there's about 150,000 people. So it was like growing up in a, mid-sized town where everybody knew everybody. You'd see the same faces. And my parents were actually not military. That's a good guess and most people's first guess. But my parents were actually ministers. And so we were there helping people with a host of things, of course, their faith, but before you can address someone's faith needs, you have to think about the basics like food in your belly, clothes on your back, and a roof over your head. And we did a lot of work to just help meet people's basic needs and to be in community with them.
Wow.
Mm. I love that. I love that. And then making your way back to the main island. What was that journey? How did you come back to the mainland?
Yeah, the mainland United States. So it was right around Y2K because we thought the world was ending, right? All the computers were going to shut down and roll back to 1900 and nobody knew what was going to happen. We had, extra canned goods and extra water and flashlights and a generator, right? We were
Yes.
prepared. And then we thought, maybe we shouldn't be in this remote place where everything has to be shipped and
Yes.
flown in the middle of nowhere if the world's gonna end. Maybe we should go back to a bigger place. So we made our way back to the mainland United
Nice.
States, California.
Yeah, love that. Love that. And then your journey into the corporate space. Tell us a little bit about that journey. Because I mean, just hearing your bio as Pam introduced you, quite a few accomplishments. You have what we like to say in the real estate world, the alphabet soup behind your name, right? Like all of the designations and the
That's right.
certifications you have invested in your career.
Hmm.
Tell us a little bit about your professional journey.
I always knew I wanted to be in the healthcare space, and I do get to practice communications and DEI in the world of health, the entire health ecosystem, everything from hospital systems to medical schools to pharma, you name it. And so much of that was influenced, in fact, by my upbringing. One of the most inaccessible resources for us to help provide people with when my parents were serving community as ministers was healthcare. It's one of the most expensive, it's hard to come by, and it was something that always stuck with me that it was something people needed and a basic human right, and yet so many people had to go without good health care, physical and mental health care. And so I knew I wanted to be a part of the solution and do something about that someday. And so I started my undergraduate career, my first 4 years, as a pre-med student. And I did that for 3 years. And then I took a general education class. It was an intro to business class. And in that class, Bonnie Stahoviak, who's a dear friend today, but Professor Stahoviak to me then, she had talked to us about one aspect of business I had never considered, nonprofits. Her mother was a CEO of a nonprofit organization. And in my very young, naive mind, I thought that everyone at those nonprofits were these saintly, wonderful volunteers. It did not cross my mind that it was a career path or that this is what these people did as vocation to feed themselves and their families in addition to helping community. And so I learned otherwise through Bonnie. And she had noticed that I had always had a knack for communications and presenting. And I mentioned I'm a minister's kid, and oftentimes that's the case. You're often thrust on a stage and meant to lead. And so you're talking in front of people and presenting all the time or performing little skits and, Christmas plays and things. And so I really did have this upbringing and this training of speaking to people and presenting. And through Bonnie's influence, I actually started exploring what I could do to help the world of healthcare and patients with communications because the idea of being a physician and the reality of being a physician very quickly became actualized for me. I was in an advanced program during my undergrad where I got to shadow clinicians and I got to go into these spaces and start to understand earlier than most pre-med students what that career would be like. And so I ended up switching in my junior year of college from pre-med to marketing and communications and found my way to helping patients, advancing health equity, and putting good back out into the community through strategic communications and DEI work.
Wow.
Wow.
A big
That's
shift.
impressive.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting the course to be the intro to business. I was actually expecting you to say it was anatomy and physiology because that's usually the course where everyone says,
Nope.
I'm
Right.
not.
Or organic chem. It's like, oh no,
Uh,
chemistry, there's so much math. Nope, can't do
I'm
it. Sorry.
good.
That's
Mm-mm. Yeah. So nope. And I get the pleasure of working within a communications firm. And so I love the variety that a firm provides. I get to touch so many different organizations, leaders, products, services, ideas that really help shape every patient's every day. And we're all patients. Everyone's a patient at some point in your life from the womb to the grave, as they say. And I get to be a part of what that experience is like for patients all across the globe.
Incredible.
And and what does that look like, Amira? Like what just on a day-to-day or week-to-week
Mhm.
basis? Are you hands-on? Are you out in the field? What does that really look like?
Yeah, every client is so different, which is why I love the agency world. It really keeps me on my toes. There are some clients where, we're their agency of record. And so we're doing all kinds of communication from what they look like to the external world to their internal employee communications and videos and social media to what their products look like and what the words are on the product packaging. And for others, we're doing a lot of work of understanding and surveying what do your audience members, your consumers, your potential patients, your potential employees want to hear from you, want to see from you out there in the world. So there's a lot of variety in my day to day, and sometimes it is super hands-on, writing a press release, pitching and placing an article for an executive at a healthcare company, or building a deck. In the world of agency and consulting, you live in decks. Everything's communicated in a PowerPoint deck. I'm building decks to present ideas and to present communications that will really move people. And that's what I tell people that I get to do is I work in behavioral communications. I get to help shape the things and the words that move people to action and mobilize entire communities, whether that is what we saw in COVID of wash your hands for 20 seconds or to the tune of the happy birthday song twice. That would be an example of an impact of the kind of work I get to do. You have experienced it and seen it in the real world, but you may not know that behind the scenes, a behavioral communications strategist like Amira was a part of helping to make sure those messages got to you out there in the world and help to make sure we were all hygienically washing our hands to care for and protect one another. And that's just one small example of how the work I get to do every day shows up in the world.
Yeah. I love that. Behavioral communication. That's such a
Yes.
thing, right? I think within our space, we talk about communication from like knowing who's your audience, like who are you talking
Hmm.
to and are you delivering the right message? But when you're wanting to really evoke action or people
Yes.
taking action, I think that there is definitely a deeper level and the I was gonna say this the psychology and
Yes,
science that's on the back end
Yeah.
it's
of that
true.
kind of
It's
yes.
art and science. We draw from every day. I tell people that's why my nose is in books all the time. We draw from psychology and sociology and anthropology and all of these different practices and sciences that influence the world of communications. And it's such a powerful tool, and media literacy plays into a part of that and is something I talk about a lot as well because words shape worlds, and that's not just
Mhm.
a quipped saying, it's a reality. They shape what we will do at any given moment in time and the reality that we all get to live together.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow. I
So when
love
you're
that.
going to work on a project, like you said, you go into books, like psychology books and
Yeah.
everything. So what is like your first step where somebody's like, okay, we need this messaging? What does that look like? That's
We
so
always start with a brief. That's
okay.
the agency way. We start with a brief, which is basically a series of questions, right? And from the world of cognitive psychology, we borrow a framing that any communicator would know: think, feel, do, and say. What do you want your audience members to think so that they will feel something, that they will do, and then say something? We really do go through the steps of getting into the persona and the mind of the audiences that you're trying to reach. And that's what helps us to shape the most right messages that will hit all of those, the six R's, right? The right person at the right time, in the right way, with the right message, for the right reason, and so on and so forth. It really is starting with a brief, a set of questions. And I tell people all the time, one of my favorite things that I get to do as a communicator is I get to ask questions all day. That
Mhm.
is
Mhm.
a lot of what shapes my work. We use inquisition as a strategy. And the same is true for the work I get to do in DEI advisory. Inquisition is a strategy. Sometimes we're asking the most right questions to elicit more information so we can then decide, okay, now how do we move based on the data and information we collected? What's the
Mhm.
best next step here?
Yeah. The art of asking, which is kind of lost. We don't see a lot of it. As
Right.
coaches, that's what we do all the time.
Hmm.
Yes.
So what were some of the things that you did to become such a great question asker?
It's been in me since forever.
Okay.
I
That's
remember I was the child who, was often told, why are you asking so many questions? And, sometimes the adults around me didn't have the answers. And I think that's
Yes.
where some of the frustration came from. My questions were so big. And I think you'll understand this because you're both Virgos too. I think it's innate to me as a September Virgo is I want to know the data, the information so that
Yeah.
I can decide my most right steps. I want to be informed. It's a very Virgo behavior to
Yes,
know
it is.
to ask questions so that I can be prepared because I always want to show up well prepared. I want to see around corners before I need to, and I don't want to be surprised. And
Mhm.
so asking questions has been a strategy from, you know, the days of little Amira to now here today, the work that I get to do as a communicator. And it's just curiosity. I
Yeah.
think curiosity is what helps us grow. Curiosity is what opens our minds to new ideas, new people, new places, is to make sure that you stay curious and you can start to work that muscle of curiosity just by
Mhm.
asking more questions.
Beautiful.
Love that. I
Beautiful.
love that. pre-med, figuring out that you need to step into the space of communication in the nonprofit world. And then, is it the lightning bolt that hits you when you realize niceness is a thing that shows
Yes.
up in the workspace and not in a great way at all times? What is your journey to becoming the soon-to-be published author of The
Yes.
Price of Nice? Yes.
Yes.
So many things. So it really just start back with little Amira, 9-year-old little Amira. So I'm going to tell you a story. I am an 80s baby, but the 90s raised me, is how I always say it to people. And I mentioned I grew up with minister parents, and so they maintained discipline with really sharp looks and heavy sighs and a raised eyebrow that could really like stop you in your tracks. And the occasional, rebuke to the backside. That was a thing back then. And nice wasn't a suggestion in our world. It was a non-negotiable demand. And for much of my life, I really tried to live up to that. In fact, I was known, it was my late mother-in-law, Pearl, who started calling me this. She would call me Precious Sweet Amira, as if it were my full government name. And other people started doing it too. I was Precious Sweet Amira. And I kind of played into it. I did.
Yeah.
My husband would joke with me. I kind of played into it, that persona, and I wore it like a badge of honor. But I started to realize that that kind of existence came with a price, right? The problem was that nice never quite fit me. I was a really good actress. I still am today. I should have gone into acting. That's what I should have done. I tell my husband and daughter, I should have been an actress,
You're still young. You can still do
I
that.
am still
Yes.
young. I can still pivot.
Yeah.
But there was this unrelenting sort of tug of war between the suffocating expectations of the daughter or daughter-in-law I was supposed to be, and the daughter that I truly was inside, the one who asked questions, who wanted to be heard and not just seen. And for a long time, it was a trap for me, and I couldn't really figure out for myself how to free myself from it. And so when I was 9, my sisters and I, we grew up with these two best friends on the tiny island of Guam. They were blonde-haired, hazel-eyed, and our best of friends. Even today, 30 plus years later, we are still sisters in every way that matters. And they were fixtures in our household, and we were in theirs. And the twins would return sometimes from vacation every summer. And we didn't have the gram back then, right? In the early aughts and the 90s. And so the best way for people to know that you had just gone somewhere fabulous was what we called vacation hair.
Yes.
Oh,
So it's the braids and
yes.
the little beads on the end, right? Think Jamaica, the Caribbean. You come back with your braided hair and the beads and painfully burned scalps.
Yes.
And very soon after returning with the twins, their cornrows were more like these fizzy haystacks, and they'd be sitting cross-legged on my mom's bedroom floor, begging for her to fix it. Can you please braid our hair like theirs? And pointing at my sisters. And my mom would, shake her head, but very kindly do it. So she'd sit there and part their very fine thin blonde hair into sections and start braiding. And there was one year where they were sort of squirming and wincing and squealing, like, ouch, it's too tight. Why does it hurt so much? Like, does your hair hurt like this? Is my hair falling out? What's happening? And so little 9-year-old Amira is standing there in the doorway, my, brow furrowed, and my arms crossed, and I'm just like, what is going on here? And for whatever reason, the September Virgo in me snapped. And I just said, well, it's because your hair isn't made for braids. And I felt like the room fell silent. My mom gave me quite a stern stare.
Yep.
My little sister was in the corner, stifling a giggle because she knew I was about to get it. I was in so much trouble.
Yes.
And one of the twins, I recall her whipping her head around so fast, the beads went flying everywhere, and her eyes were wide, her mouth open, and just this expression of like shock and hurt and confusion. And my mom said, Amira, that's not nice. And the twins and my sisters just stared at me. And later my mom came and talked to me and said, you can't just say things like that, even if they're true. And there it was for me, the price of nice, a lesson that had been ingrained in me until I unpacked it, which is what you'll discover in this book, that being nice is more important than being real. That no matter how right you are or how true the thing is, if it makes someone uncomfortable, you are the problem. Now, my mom didn't intend for that to be the lesson, but that's what little Amira took. And that's what I've been unpacking for the entirety of my almost 40 years on this earth. And that's why I wrote a whole book about it. And looking back now, I realize I could have handled the situation differently. I was still right, though, to be clear. I was not wrong. That's the Virgo in me as well. I was right. I just want everybody to know that.
Just for the record, that sword is the one
I'm
that
not
she's died
apologizing.
on.
I was not wrong. I was correct. And what I said was true. Your hair will fall out because it's not made for those tight braids.
Thank you for joining us today on the Reignite Resilience podcast. We hope you had some aha moments and learned a few new real-life ideas to fuel the flames of passion. Please subscribe on your favorite streaming platform, like or download your favorite episodes, and of course, share with your friends and family. We look forward to seeing you again next time on Reignite Resilience.